Yeah, so not too shabby. Hold on.
I have like a million things to do today, but we just found out that we have the opportunity to buy 2, maybe 3 or 4 arcade machines. And as you know, we're trying to build out the store into more of a nostalgia destination. So we gotta jump on this, all right? So I'm dropping everything. I gotta go get a U-Haul and I gotta go, all right?
Future Nick here, and while past Nick is driving to go pick up some arcade machines, I want to give you a little backstory and a little history on one specific game, as well as, I guess, arcades in general. Now, in the year of 2025, it's kind of hard to believe there was a point in time where people actually left the house to play video games. Culture today tries to tell us that video game players are like locked away in their parents' basement or something like that, and that just wasn't the case then. Or at least they were in someone else's basement, a arcade's basement. They were just somewhere else. At the beginning, video games just really didn't exist in console form, and even once they became consoles, they were often too expensive to actually buy for your home. So going to an arcade was kind of like your only option. In order to be a successful arcade, you had to have the best games. So titles like Centipede, Frogger, and Space Invaders were at any arcade worth its salt. And to this day, games like Pac-Man, Galaga, and Donkey Kong still see widespread appeal, whether in their old original state, a new fresh take on the original game, or even an iteration using the same cast of characters. These are the games that deservingly so get the majority of people's attention and are already cemented in the history books of gaming. Simultaneously, the 80s were home to the admittedly then kind of waning genre of kung fu and martial arts movies. Bruce Lee was already a legend. There were movies like Bloodsport, Karate Kid, and even Jackie Chan had his directorial debut in the 80s with The Young Master. Yet, despite the popularity of the kung fu movie craze for over a decade, game developers had yet to make a really significant fighting title. It's really hard to imagine today that an entire genre of movies and even specific titles within the genre that have seen success for more than a decade wouldn't be developed into their own video game. I mean, even Chicken Run had its own video game. But this was the 80s, and they didn't know you could do that yet, and learning that certainly wouldn't come back to bite them in the butt anytime soon. All right, that's a different story. Let's move on. Let's check back in on past Nick and see how he's doing picking up the game.
We got 3 machines all tied up, ready to go. All 3 are multicades, so when you pay for it, you can choose what game you want to play from, like, you know, a lot. So it should be great.
We've got the machines in the back of the truck, and I could not be more excited. When I first showed up there, I thought that the machines were exactly what they looked like. You know, like I believe one of them is a Galaga machine, another one's a Burger Time machine, etc. And it turns out that they're multicades. So they have the option to pick between, you know, a couple hundred games, I guess. What I didn't realize is that you could do a coin-operated multicade. So now someone puts in their coins, and then they get to pick which game they want to play, which I think is a great feature. I also really like this from the standpoint of being a destination for nostalgia, because everyone's nostalgic about something different. Like if we just had Pac-Man, that would only appeal to so many people, but the fact that people can choose their game. You know, like most of the arcades that I've been to are actually in Japan. So my reference point for arcades is really like a plug and play at home.
And the irony is, with hundreds of games, the one we're talking about today is not on any of these.
So we've got the machines in. Sad giraffe. We've got the machines in. They look awesome, and let me show you how they work. So you put in your coin, and you get to pick from one of 10 pages of 4 games. So there's 40 loaded up right now. But as you know, the game we want to talk about is not here. It's somewhere else in the store. The game that we want to talk about is Kung Fu Master. Now, in comes Takashi Nishiyama, a game designer for Irem who had recently been promoted to developer. Being a martial arts movie fan in his own right, he was excited to develop a game that could capture that spark. Whether Nishiyama knew it or not, Kung Fu Master was about to change the entire landscape of video games. Loosely based on the Jackie Chan movie Spartan X and Bruce Lee's Game of Death, the game is responsible for creating an entire genre in beat-em-ups. It would also be a direct reference for the development of Super Mario Bros., and Nishiyama himself would go on to create Street Fighter. So in some regards, it is the first fighting game and the inspiration for probably the most impactful fighting game of all time. Now, if you're really interested in hearing more about Nishiyama, I do encourage you to watch this video from GVG. They were a great source for me, and it's really an excellent video, and it's hard to imagine the gaming world without Nishiyama. When my brother and I first bought the store, we were gifted a Big Top pinball machine. And that kind of sparked something in us that we wanted to bring retro games into the store. Fast forward a few weeks, and our mom had stumbled upon an online auction that included an arcade cabinet for none other than Kung Fu Master. Apparently no one knew what they were looking at because we were able to get the arcade cabinet for just $90. Now, if you've never played Kung Fu Master, it's pretty simple. There's a main character, his name's Thomas. He's trying to save his girlfriend Sylvia from some bad guy. And I definitely don't say some bad guy simply because I haven't beaten the game and I don't even know how to get to floor 5, and it's impossible. There's 5 floors in the game, and presumably Sylvia's at the top of the 5th floor. So in order to save her, you have to progress through each floor, beat the boss on that given floor so that you can move up in the game. Now, when we first got this game in store, it took me 6 months to get past the first boss. For reference, the 2nd floor boss I probably got past in a week. Now, this brings me to a little bit of my philosophy in life and the way it relates to the game and why I kind of love this game in a spiritual way. After grinding the first floor for so long, I've gotten so good at it that I can just sit there and use it as a sandbox to rack up the highest score possible. Meanwhile, when I first played the 2nd floor, it was so jarring to me to have these dragons. I think there's 2 different kinds of dragons. Oh, snakes. It's snakes. So it was so jarring to me to deal with these dragons and these snakes that I thought it was the most difficult thing. But as mentioned before, only a week in I was able to beat it. Then PS, you get to floor 3 and it's essentially a clone of floor 1 with added enemies. And this brings me to what I really want to talk about. Sometimes in life, when we're trying to make our way through this insane journey, it can feel like whatever's in front of you is so daunting and so difficult that it's impossible to get past. But in reality, more often than not, the next floor up is much easier than the floor you're on. It's just simply unknown. Now, this isn't always the case. I mean, in my rankings, I would say that the 1st floor is harder than the 2nd floor, but the 3rd floor is harder than them both. But so often the things that seem the most challenging to us are just the most unfamiliar. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably wondering to yourself, how does the 4th and 5th floor fit into this? Well, the 4th floor is impossible and no one has ever beaten it. So that's where that fits into this. But I think that's kind of the beauty of life, is your first part of the journey might feel the most difficult, but then you can zoom past the 2nd and the 3rd. And then you're on to the 4th, which might be even more difficult than the previous 3 combined, but who knows what's on the next side. You know, when I first bought this toy store, all of the things that I thought would be really easy turned out to be the hardest things about it. Meanwhile, the things I thought would be really difficult ended up being a breeze. And all the way, the things that I'm learning are going to make the next floor much easier. So that's kind of my philosophy through the lens of Kung Fu Master, which serendipitously is one of the most important video games and just happened to end up in our store. So I think that's really kind of special. And I thank you guys so much for watching this video. And I'll see you next week.
Oh, this game is